Jessica jolted awake. A loud crash echoed from outside. Metal on pavement. Then came the barking, fierce, deep, maximum. She froze, heart pounding. Max was their Doberman, sleek, sharp, and protective. He didn't bark at squirrels or falling branches. If he sounded like that, something was really wrong. She sat up slowly, straining to hear. The barking grew louder, more frantic. Nails scraped against the hardwood. He was downstairs, throwing himself at the door. Jessica hesitated. She wanted to check, but something about the sound made her skin crawl. So instead, she pulled the covers over her head and waited for the silence to return. Eventually, it did. Morning brought no peace. Jessica stepped outside and stopped cold. Trash cans overturned, lids flung into the bushes. Greasy wrappers, torn napkins, and soggy leftovers were plastered across the porch like confetti after a riot. Max stood just inside the doorway, alert and still. His cropped ears twitched. His body was tense, but he didn't move until she spoke. "You've got to be kidding me," Jessica muttered. It had to be an animal, a big one. Raccoon? Possum? Something worse? She didn't know. But she was going to find out. That night, she stayed up, wrapped in a blanket, watching the yard through the living room window. Max lay nearby, eyes fixed forward, waiting. Then, movement. Max rose first, slow, focused. His body stiffened like a coiled spring. Outside, a shadow scurried past the bushes. Jessica leaned closer to the glass. There, by the trash can. A small figure scrambled up the rim, then disappeared inside. The lid clattered to the ground. Jessica flinched. Max let out one sharp bark, his whole frame rigid with tension. She squinted through the darkness. A raccoon. It popped its head up, muzzle buried in scraps, ripping through leftovers like it hadn't eaten in days. Jessica exhaled. No way. It was almost funny, but it didn't stop. Every night, the raccoon came back. Every night, Max barked and growled and paced the door, but not once did he lunge. Not once did he bark to kill. He stood alert, but restrained. "What is going on with you?" Jessica whispered, watching him one night as he stared out into the dark, muscles trembling but unmoving. Her dad scowled. "That thing's asking for it. One night, Max is gonna tear it apart." But Max never did. They started locking him in the kitchen. He scratched at the door until his paws bled, barked until he went hoarse. But he never gave up. And Jessica started to wonder if Max wasn't trying to chase something away. Maybe he was trying to get to something. The storm rolled in fast. Wind slammed into the windows. Trees groaned under the pressure. Rain lashed the roof in heavy sheets. Jessica lay in bed, watching shadows dance across her ceiling. For once, she thought maybe the raccoon would skip its midnight routine. No animal would be out in this. She exhaled and turned over. Her eyes fluttered shut. Crash. A louder bang than usual, metal on concrete. Then, Max. He exploded downstairs, barking so loud it shook the floor, snarling, clawing, launching himself at the kitchen door. Jessica shot upright. This wasn't the usual barking. This was something else. She jumped out of bed, heart racing. Another crack of thunder. The whole house seemed to shudder. "Max!" she called, grabbing her lamp and jacket. But her voice was lost beneath the chaos outside. She stumbled down the stairs, feet bare against the cold floor. In the kitchen, Max was a silhouette of muscle and motion, slamming his weight into the door, teeth bared, eyes wild. "Max, stop!" But he didn't even look at her. That's when she realized he wasn't angry. He was panicking. Jessica's hand shook as she reached for the lock. Another flash of lightning lit up the backyard. She opened the door. Wind punched through the frame, rain whipping her in the face. Leaves spiraled in like debris in a storm drain. And just like that, Max bolted. "Max!" She lunged after him, but the Doberman was already gone. A blur of muscle and instinct swallowed by the night. Jessica stood frozen, drenched, the door still hanging open. She didn't think. She didn't hesitate. She ran. Rain hit like ice as she tore through the yard, slipping in mud, branches lashing her arms. "Max!" she screamed again. No answer. The flashlight in her hand wobbled, its beam bouncing wildly. The storm seemed to pull at her, push her back. But she kept going. Lightning split the sky. And there, just ahead, she saw him. Maximum. His sleek frame tore through the mud, powerful legs churning, focused, intent, and just in front of him, the raccoon. Jessica's breath caught. He wasn't chasing it in rage. He wasn't barking. He was following it. Branches clawed at her as she pushed deeper into the woods. "Max!" Jessica shouted, but the storm swallowed her voice. The wind roared in her ears, and the ground turned to slick mud beneath her boots. The beam from her flashlight shook, flickering. Her lungs burned. Then her foot slipped. She slammed into the ground hard. Mud splashed up her arms. Her flashlight flew from her grip and spun into the dark. Jessica groaned, winded. Her hand sank into the cold, wet earth as she forced herself up to her knees. Her fingers closed around the flashlight. She lifted it, hands trembling, and swept the beam forward. Her breath caught. Max was there, standing like a statue at the base of a hollowed-out tree. Soaked, silent, focused. In front of him, the raccoon. It was crouched low, drenched and shivering. Its body blocked something behind it, tail curled tight. Jessica stepped closer, light raised. And there, tucked into a nest of wet leaves, were 3 tiny kits. Fur clumped from the rain, eyes barely open, huddled together, shivering. One let out a faint cry. Jessica's stomach dropped. The raccoon turned to them immediately, nosing the smallest kit toward her body, shielding it with her frame. Max didn't move. He just stood there, head low, eyes calm. Not a guard, not a hunter, a protector. Jessica knelt, soaking through her jeans, barely aware of the cold anymore. She stared at the scene. Max standing guard, the raccoon curled around her babies, the storm raging around them like another world. Everything made sense. The trash, the barking, the strange way Max hesitated. She hadn't been watching a fight. She'd been watching a family trying to survive. And Max? He'd known all along. Jessica didn't move. Rain dripped from her hair, soaked through her clothes, but she stayed kneeling, eyes locked on the raccoon. Max shifted beside her, his body relaxed but ready. His presence felt steady, anchored. He wasn't just watching, he was waiting. Jessica's heart pounded. The kits whimpered softly. One of them tried to climb over the other, then collapsed again in a shivering heap. The raccoon turned sharply, protective, alert. Jessica swallowed hard. "I'm not here to hurt you," she whispered. Her voice barely rose above the storm. Slowly, she unzipped her jacket. Her fingers were stiff with cold, but she slid it off her shoulders and laid it in front of her on the ground. The raccoon didn't move. Her eyes flicked to the coat, then back to Jessica. Jessica took a breath and pushed it forward, inch by inch. One of the kits stirred, nosing toward the soft fabric. The raccoon flinched. Jessica froze. Then Max stepped forward just a little and sat between them, a quiet signal. The raccoon held her ground. Jessica took it as permission. She leaned in and gently wrapped the coat around the kits, tucking them in as best she could. They didn't resist, just trembled. The raccoon let out a low, tired sound. Not a growl, more like a sigh. Jessica sat back, muddy and soaked to the bone, watching this fragile moment unfold. Max nudged her arm, then turned toward home. The raccoon followed. Not close, but not hiding. Jessica stood cradling the bundled kits against her chest. Together, the 3 of them stepped into the storm. The storm passed, but the woods still whispered about it. Branches littered the yard. Mud caked Jessica's boots as she stepped onto the porch, a plate of food in her hands. Max sat beside her, calm, quiet. His ears perked, watching. Jessica crouched and set the plate near the steps. Nothing fancy, just scraps and warm leftovers. It wasn't a trap. It wasn't bait. It was an offering. Max didn't bark. He just stayed beside her, alert, tail resting gently on the porch. She scratched behind his ear. "Good boy," she murmured. That night she didn't wait by the window. She didn't need to. But in the morning, she peeked through the glass just in case. And there they were. At the edge of the woods, the raccoon stood tall, her kits huddled at her side. Their fur was fluffed out now, healthy, strong, curious. One of them tumbled sideways into the grass, then scrambled upright. Jessica smiled, holding her breath. Then the raccoon looked up, straight at her. They held each other's gaze for a long, quiet moment. No fear, no tension. Then the raccoon turned, and the little family slipped back into the trees. Jessica let out a slow breath. It didn't feel like an ending. It felt like a thank you. Later, she sat at the kitchen table, fingers hovering over her laptop keyboard. The cursor blinked at her, waiting. Finally, she typed, "I used to think our dog was protecting us from a pest. Turns out, he was protecting her." She didn't need to explain everything. The story spoke for itself. Sometimes the animals we fear are just doing what we'd do in their place, protecting their families, trying to survive. Have you ever misjudged someone before you knew what they were going through? Has your pet ever reacted to something in a way you didn't understand, only to realize they knew more than you thought? We'd love to hear your story. Drop it in the comments. If this story touched you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs a little reminder about empathy, especially the kind that comes with fur, claws, and quiet instincts. Your support really helps us keep telling stories like this one. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.